it's Naya. Welcome back to Naya vs. Files. Halloween is in less than a week for anybody who celebrates. If you don't, I'm sorry that you have to deal with all the drunk people that are gonna be out in the wild. But I thought, since, you know, I'm in like the spooky spirit, I've been marathoning all of my favorite horror movies. Still haven't seen The Nun, need to watch that one. I thought it was about time that I recommend you guys my favorite thriller and suspense book. For anyone who's new to my channel, first of all, hi, and welcome to the Read and Smile family over here. And second of all, my favorite genre next to fantasy is thriller and suspense. So I have read a plethora of thriller and suspense books, and out of everything I read, these books I'm about to share with you today are my top. I was gonna do a top 5, but I was like, you know what, Halloween, we should do the number 6 because, you know, that's like a spooky number. So I'm gonna do my top 6 thriller slash suspense books. I also want to say, if you're someone who is not a fan of these sort of books, don't worry, I do have like different levels of thrillers included in here. So if you're someone who doesn't like the blood and the gore, I have some more milder books. And then for all of you pro thriller readers who love a good thrill, I have some intense thrillers as well. So yes, without further ado, let's get into this. I haven't talked about some of these books in so long, so I'm excited to like fangirl over them again, you know? So the first book I have here is Cain's Blood by Jeffrey Gerard. And now this book I read, I think like 2.5 or 3 years ago. It has been a while, but I still remember it quite vividly because it was so good. I don't know about you guys, but my favorite books I can recall like this. Like, I remember exactly how I felt and exactly what I was doing when I was reading the book. But yeah, Cain's Blood. This book is so unique when it comes to like thrillers. I think actually it might even fall a little under sci-fi. For all my sci-fi lovers out there, I love sci-fi as well. Okay, first of all, it's an adult novel. It's not super explicit, but it does get kind of graphic, so, you know, warning for all the youngins out there. The basic plot of this book is that scientists, I don't know what scientists are doing this, but scientists basically took the DNA from different serial killers. So like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, like all of these famous serial killers that were just known for being like violent and awful and just really messed up. They took these different DNA samples and bred children, or made children with the same DNA of these serial killers. So like almost like cloned them basically. Not only did they clone them, but they then put different versions of these little like cloned serial killer children in different families. Some were raised in like really nice families, some were raised in like really violent, abusive families, basically as an experiment to see if they would grow up and be serial killers. It has to do kind of with like that whole like nature versus nurture idea of, are people the way they are because of their DNA, or is it because of the environment they grow up in? Children find out that they are the children of serial killers and basically like go and escape their sort of environments that they're in. So now there's a bunch of these children serial killers that are clones of adults, so like the younger version of these older serial killers out on the loose, and like some of them are wrecking havoc, some of them are like totally normal. We're following our main character, who basically finds out that he is a clone of Jeffrey Dahmer, who, if you don't know who he is, Google him. Really disturbing. Like, I don't want to talk about it, but yeah, it's bad. Anyways, and so he runs away, and then there's this officer that's like trying to hunt him down and find him. And so yeah, I guess it is kind of sci-fi a little bit, right? Like science fiction. Yeah, okay, maybe this is more sci-fi than thriller, but you know what? It's thrilling. I was thrilled when I was reading it. What if you found out that you have the DNA of a serial killer, right? Or that you're a clone of a serial killer? Like, what would you do with that information, and how would that dictate what you do and like how you act? That's kind of like the line of questioning that our main character asks himself, and it's so cool. I don't want to spoil it and tell you what happens, but it's just so interesting and compelling and thrilling. It's not too like scary, but it definitely is like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? There's all these like teenage killers out there. Okay, the next book I have here is very adult and very explicit. So yeah, definitely rated R on this one. But don't worry, I still have other ones that are a lot more mild. The Girl in 6E by A.R. Tor. Now, some people have read this book and was like, nope, this isn't for me. It's definitely one of those books that you're either gonna like love it or be like, no, like after 2 chapters, you're just gonna be like, I'm done, we're not doing this. Another book where our main character has serial killer tendencies, I guess you could say. She wants to kill people. She has this urge to kill people, and she knows it's bad, and she knows that, you know, the logical part of herself is like, I can't do that, I can't do that. So what she basically does is lock herself in her apartment, and she hasn't left her apartment in, I think, like, is it a year or 2 years, something like that. Because she never leaves her apartment, she had to kind of figure out a job that would allow her to never leave her apartment. So she ends up becoming a webcam model, and the book starts with her, a very, very graphic, intense, detailed scene of her like performing for the webcam. Yeah, so like a little erotica there, but not really, like, it's, yeah. So this is what I mean when I say some people are just gonna be really turned off at it at first, but it gets better throughout the book, and we kind of get more focused on the plot than like what she's doing, if that makes any sense. Something ends up happening, and she thinks that one of the people that are watching her, so one of her clients, I guess you could say, might be a killer or might be about to like commit a crime against someone or something. She has to decide whether she wants to leave her apartment for the first time, maybe kill someone herself because, you know, she has these tendencies, but potentially save someone by leaving and, like, you know, solving this crime that's going on. It's really crazy. We kind of have 2 different storylines going on. We're following like this girl, the potential victim, and then we're following our main character, and it's kind of going back and forth, and their 2 lives end up intersecting, and it's just, it's so interesting. I love it. Okay, book number 3. You guys know, if you've been following me for a while, you know, this is my book. When people ask me, Naya, what book, what thriller book, what stalker book should I read? You know, this is the book. You by Caroline Kepnes is #1 out of all these books. I should have said this one first, but you know what? It's number 3 is a good number too. You by Caroline Kepnes. Oh my god. Okay, I want to start by saying that this book was recently adapted to a TV series that's going on right now, and I've only seen the first 2 episodes, but it is one of the best adaptations I have ever watched. I like literally, I'm like, whenever I'm like, people ask me like what show they should watch right now, I'm like, first of all, read this book and then go and watch the show. The actors are exactly who I imagined if like after I read the book, and it's so good. So yeah, another little motivation for anybody who's might be potentially thinking about reading this book. Read this book, honestly, so you can go and watch the TV series. Like, the book's a 10 of 10. The TV series just took the book and turned it into everything that it just is. So okay, I need to stop fangirling and start talking about the book. You by Caroline Kepnes. So this book is told in 2nd person, and we're in the mind of Joe, who is a serial killer stalker guy, okay? He's either a sociopath or a psychopath. I'm gonna say sociopath. He's a sociopath, and he just is insane. And this is the first book well, actually, the 2nd book I ever read where we're inside the head of the stalker, of the bad guy, of the antagonist of the story, and it is creepy as HE double hockey sticks, okay? Like, it is creepy. This main character, Joe, he works in a bookstore, which is really just awful because, you know, you start off reading the book and you're like, oh, he works in a bookstore. I love guys who work in bookstores. And then you're like, oh shoot, he's a murderer. We should not like this guy. This girl comes in one day and he's just like absolutely obsessed with her. Beck is her name. And so the stalking begins, and he just like, you're in his head the whole time throughout the whole story as he like gets close to her and forms a relationship with her, and she's just like falling for all of it, and he just knows how to seem normal when he's not, and it's terrifying and so thrilling and suspenseful and just like fast-paced, and like I could not stop reading this. I read this book in like 2 days. This is another adult novel, but really creepy, very, very explicit, very sexually explicit, so warning for the youngins, but overall the plot is just fantastic. It's so good, and there's a 2nd book in the series, so when you finish it, just go ahead, pick up Hidden Bodies. I'm only still halfway through Hidden Bodies, but yeah, You is just, it's full you gotta read it. Next book, which I would say is a milder version of You. So for anyone who's younger watching who wants to read a book like You but doesn't want all the explicit stuff, Stolen by Lucy Christopher. Oh my god, another book told in the 2nd person. I consider Stolen like the young adult version of You, but Stolen is so good, but this book is less scary and more just conflicting slash heart-wrenching slash suspenseful, if that makes sense. We're following this girl, she's like 16 or 17, and she's in an airport and she gets kidnapped by this guy, and this story is told again in second person, and we're following along basically her being held hostage by this guy, and it kind of has to do a lot with Stockholm syndrome again, which is where basically the victim starts to feel and have feelings towards the captor, and that's where like the conflicting part comes in, because you know, he treats her very well in the book, and it just, the dynamic between them is sort of the main plot of the story, like their relationship that forms and her trying to escape while also feeling the need to stay, and just this whole, just, oh my god, it's intense. And it's intense. It's probably one of the most intense books I've ever read. Like, it's less than 300 pages, but it's like, you as a reader, I've never felt more conflicted reading a book, and more just, I was constantly thinking about the characters, and by the end of the book, I was crying, like good, bad tears. Like, it's intense is the only way I could describe the book. It's intense, but so worth the read. Yeah, it's like, it's intense. The next book I have here is another YA book, so we're getting out of the adult novels and getting more to the young adult novels, but Creed by Trisha Lever and Lindsay Curry, a very, very short book, but this book has to kind of do with like cults, like religious cults. That's why it's called Creed here, but basically it's about these teens that are like driving, like I think they're on a road trip or something like that, and they basically stop in this town that's kind of abandoned, and they end up getting sort of roped into this weird cult thing that's going on, and then they have to try and figure out how to escape, and it's just really weird, really creepy, really fast-paced, highly suspenseful. All these books are highly suspenseful, but yeah, this one's a young adult book, and we're following like 3 characters in this book, but I love it. I've read other books by Trisha Lever and Lindsay Curry. I actually got to meet Trisha Lever, but if you want something that's more like culty, more creepy abandoned town style book, this one is definitely a really quick read, and not too scary. You know, you can read this at 3 in the morning and it won't like freak you out or anything. The last book that I have here, which this book came out in 1982, I think, but it's one of those books where it's like the author wrote it so well to where you can't tell it was written in that time period, except for maybe like the lack of social media, but besides that, you can't tell that it was written that long ago. Chain Letter by Christopher Pike. This book is all about blackmail, so we're basically following these groups of teens that they did something bad, okay? They did something bad, and basically they thought they got away with it until, you know, summer's over and the school year's starting, and these teens are getting these letters in the mail, like old-fashioned sort of blackmail style letters where it's like magazine cutout letters that are glued on. You have to do this thing or I'm gonna expose you for this thing that they did. Every week, the sort of blackmail demand gets greater and greater. While they're like having to do what the blackmailer wants, they're also trying to figure out who the blackmailer is, and just like it's so good, and we're following multiple characters, and this book is actually a bind up of the first and the second book in the series, and I've only read the first book, so yeah, the second book's in here, I just never got around to it, but I feel like I have to reread the first one. But yeah, it's very fast paced. If you're a fan of Pretty Little Liars, I think you'll really like it. It's definitely kind of like the whole A situation going on in Pretty Little Liars, but yeah, this was the original, okay? This came out before Pretty Little Liars. Alright, that is all the books that I have to recommend you guys today. I hope you check out some of these books and you just, yeah, get, you know, thrilled. I hope these books thrill you. But no, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, keep reading, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.